Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back another video from Devil Artemis, something slightly different. I've been wanting to do this for ages, just never got around to doing it, and I thought, you know what, why not? Let's just check it out. He did this like 2 months ago, just ranking popular Dragon Ball techniques as a tier list. And I like checking out tier lists and giving my thoughts and blah blah blah, so... And another reminder to just go subscribe to Devil Artemis. Let's get him to that 1 million. He's on 900, nearly on 990,000. Oh, just over 10,000 away from that million. I want Cell vs. Cell, Takahata vs. Devil Artemis. But anyway, let's chill and check out this tier list ranking popular Dragon Ball techniques.
DAU, welcome to the Dragon Ball Technique tier list.
Woo.
I'm Devil Artemis, and today we're ranking some of your favorite Dragon Ball techniques. Now, before we begin, we just want to establish some ground rules.
Okay.
These techniques are not going to be based off the individual using said techniques,
But the technique itself, cool.
we are just going to be judging them based off their effectiveness and how much utility they might have during combat or against the opponent. We also aren't placing them in any specific order. We are just ranking them by the tiers.
Cool.
If you guys want to rank along with the video, the link is in the pinned comment as well as the description box. But anyway, enough rambling, let's get going. Starting off with All Reliable, the Kamehameha.
Kamehameha.
It's your basic energy wave, but it can be amplified to ridiculous levels. It's iconic, it's reliable, and I'm just going to drop it in A tier.
I was going to say A as well because I feel like it's not S because the time it takes to, sometimes.
Next up, we have Namekian Fusion.
Oh, mate. Boom. That's got to be at least A.
Now, Fusion in general is OP. Regardless of what race is actually doing it, Fusion amplifies the user's power and it gives them the most supreme hacks that we've seen in the world of Dragon Ball.
But the way the Namekians work, we see it in Super, don't it? Like you can keep just fusing eventually into one.
So for that, I'm going to be dropping this in Z tier.
Oh, so we got Z instead of...
Final
Okay.
Explosion. Okay, so here's the thing. It's definitely a flashy move, but considering that you end up dead,
Yeah, it's got some hecka drawbacks there, hasn't it?
it might not be the most favorable technique to use, right? Because it's kind of like a one-time use kind of thing. So I wouldn't really put this in the higher tiers. I definitely drop this in D tier.
Oh, wow.
And there is a very strong reason for that, other than the death. You know, it's a technique that could be effective, but I'd argue that there are explosive waves that do not kill the user, and it accomplishes the same thing. The only thing that this one really has over the others, I would say, is the sheer size of the explosion.
Yo.
But yeah, other than that, D tier it is. Dodon Ray. Okay, so Dodon Ray is a finger beam. A lethal finger beam, but it's not the strongest of techniques. You know,
Okay.
I'm just going to drop this one in E. The next one is called the Four Witches technique.
Four
Tien used this during Dragon Ball, and all it really did was just, it gives you extra
Extra
arms.
arms, cool.
That's really it. You just get extra arms during combat. I don't think it's really that effective, considering that you can lose said arms, and the arms don't really come with extra abilities either. They're just basic ass arms. So I'm dropping this one in F.
Okay.
Burning Attack. So Burning Attack is a very stylish attack.
It looks cool.
It seems like it doesn't take that long to set up, right? You just throw up a couple of gang signs, which is, it'll probably
Gang
confuse your
signs, love
opponent,
it.
and then boom, explosion.
It's like, what is he
simple,
doing?
It's
Ah!
reliable. I'd argue that this belongs in C tier. You know, it's not going to stand up against like a massive Kamehameha wave if that's coming your way, right? But it's still a reliable technique. Hellzone Grenade. I
Yo.
always thought that this
This was sick, right? Before we got into it, I loved this. I loved how we were thrown off guard because it's like he's missed, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what he's doing. Whack, boom. This was sick. This is definitely A.
was an amazing technique. It's hard to avoid. It has awesome utility. It can act
don't
as
understand it
somewhat
until
of
it's
a
too late.
minefield to control space during a fight, or you can just straight up use it as an
Yo.
overwhelming barrage. Either way, it's a very useful technique, and I'd place this in B tier. Instant Transmission.
Hey.
So this has to be one of the most useful techniques
Oh,
in the Dragon
ZT,
Ball
yeah.
universe.
ZT,
The fact that
ZT.
Goku has used this to teleport across the cosmos, save his own life, save the life of others,
The instant transmission Kamehameha against Cell. Ah.
its utility is just insane. It's quite possibly one of the fastest forms of mobility in the Dragon Ball universe. And I know for a fact it would help you avoid a lot of the techniques that you would see on this tier list. So for that, I drop it in Z tier.
Definitely.
100%. Gallic Gun. So Gallic Gun and
It's
Kamehameha
so
are
powerful.
literally the same technique. We haven't seen Gallic Gun
But not really.
be amplified in the same way that Kamehameha has throughout Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball
Exactly. Like, it's just, as Vegeta gets stronger, the technique gets stronger.
Z, GT Super. I'd argue that it's just shy of A tier, like maybe a step under the Kamehameha wave, so B tier. Solar Flare. So this technique is very useful. Once you're hit with it,
so
you are blind.
handy, so handy. At least A, just for the utility.
And you can't defend yourself. You are going to get either knocked out or one-shotted. So I'm going to drop this bad boy right here in C tier. Because there is still a risk of it not working, right? It could not be as effective if the person is wearing something over their face.
Yeah, like Goku with the glasses, or was it Gohan just closes his eyes? But then Krillin manages to doesn't Krillin manage to amplify it in Super so that it doesn't even matter if you got your eyes closed?
Or if they're just hiding behind something, maybe if they turn around, close their eyes, or just don't look, you know, the technique won't work. Final Flash. Okay, this move belongs in A tier, right next to the Kamehameha. We haven't seen it used that often, but we've seen what it can do and how strong this technique really is.
He could have killed Cell with it. If he hit Cell directly with it, he could have killed Cell. But instead he just blew his arm off and then he regenerated and he drained himself.
A tier. Special Beam Cannon, as an attack alone, it's
deadly.
really good. The question is, can you charge the attack long enough to use it in an actual battle without help? Can you even hit your opponent in the first place? That's what kind of holds this back, you know, the ridiculous charge time.
It does
Not
have
to
a
say
long
that you
time,
can't fire a Special Beam Cannon with it barely being charged, right? Because we've seen Piccolo do that. But it's more effective the longer you charge it. For that, I'm going to drop it in D tier. Galactic Donuts. So this is a strange one. You know, the move itself just binds people.
Is this a
but you can also
movie
use
move?
multiple of them to encase someone in like a ball that explodes. Right?
Please
That's
show
what
a
the
clip so I
ultra
know where
charged
this is
Boo Boo
from. I'm so
volleyball attack is. It's
confused.
just multiple Galactic Donuts encasing the target. It's a good move overall, but I think that there are other techniques that are more useful than
Where was
this.
it used?
I will drop this over in C tier. Super Ghost Kamikaze Attack. These ghosts explode on contact, and they fuck you up.
I'd say
it really
C.
doesn't get more simple than that.
Yeah.
C tier. All right, so the next one I think is flying. So flying in the Dragon Ball universe has its uses, right? But it's more like a fundamental technique that most of the Z fighters learn anyway, but it's not going to help you win a battle, right? It is useful to have, though. So I'd drop this in.
I'd say if you didn't have it, you can lose. If you couldn't fly in Dragon Ball, you ain't winning a fight.
Destructo Disc. Man, this
Yo.
thing is such a dangerous technique. You're literally chucking saw blades. It's ridiculous. And also terrifying, because you can manually guide these saw blades. B tier.
Yeah, it's got to be up
And
there.
we are
isn't it?
back with Fusion. Now, we mentioned it before. Fusions are broken as hell. This one is a bit different from the Namekian fusion because you still run the risk of messing up the actual dance, and then you're just useless for like 30 minutes. So if
30
you
minutes,
do
yeah.
perform the dance correctly, it is the most broken technique in Dragon Ball. And for that, it belongs in Z tier. Tri-Beam is up next, and that is a cool technique. You are actually firing out your spirit essence, your life energy. There is a danger to using this technique because you can literally die, but I think there's less of a risk of death with using Tri-Beam compared to other techniques. So I wouldn't put it in D tier. I'd probably drop this in C tier.
Okay.
The Kaioken. Right, so the Kaioken is not a transformation. It is a technique, for those of you who might be confused, meaning anyone can learn Kaioken.
Well, yeah, it was something he learnt, and then you could just it amplifies your. Yeah, it's not. Who thinks it's a transformation? Who thinks it's a transformation?
Krillin, Tien.
Because he uses it when in blue. So what?
Literally anyone. Using it comes with a cost, though. It does damage your body the higher multiples you go. It'll give you incredible speed, power, and you can even combine it with other abilities. Because of its usefulness, because of its potential utility, I'm going to drop this in B tier. All right, so the next one is Nappa's finger eruption explosion
Mate.
thing. So I'm not going to lie, this is probably one of the best moves on this list.
It's so cool. I never forget it. I never forget that move. And I hate that they just tried to pull it off again in GT when they brought him back, and it's just like, ugh. But it was so, he just turned, he just, whoa, just lifts his finger like that. It's like, bing, and everything's just like, boom, and it's just like, yo, this dude's a threat. I'll never forget watching that on TV.
You're literally nuking something with 2 fingers. And it's not, I'm not talking about a tiny explosion either. You are wiping shit off the surface of the planet with this one. I don't understand Dragon Ball scaling sometimes, but this is a prime example of like a move that just does an insane amount of damage at a very early point in the series. Imagine Nappa just walking into the Leaf Village and just soloing the entire village with this one move. It's just, it's crazy.
Well, he would,
I'm
wouldn't
going
he?
to drop
It's
this
basically
one
just
in
like,
A tier.
Have Nappa instead of pain.
All right, next one is the Wolf Fang Fist. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be that guy, Yamcha, but this is just a normal physical attack. There's no actual wolf, okay? You are a fraud. There is no claws. There is no slashes, or even ki, for that matter, okay? It's just a barrage of physical attacks. You should be ashamed, good sir. That is all it is. I'm sorry, Yamcha. It looks cool. It sounds cool, but I'm gonna drop it in F.
Yamcha just never getting a win.
So I'm not really sure what to call this next one, but it's General Blue's psychic ability thingy, where he can just paralyze the opponent by looking at them. The bad thing about it is that it seems that if you're distracted or not focused on the opponent, the technique kind of just wears off, and it seems to only work on one person at a time. So I'm just going to drop this in E tier. Next up, we have Piccolo's Explosive Demon Wave. Now, this move was used by both versions of Piccolo, and let me tell you, it does damage. I mean, this thing is on par with Nappa's Finger Explosion. I'd argue maybe even better. It wipes out entire cities. Piccolo used this to destroy the fucking moon, I'm pretty sure. It's just ridiculous. A tier. The next one is the paralyzing technique that I believe Guldo uses. I think that this is just a superior version of General Blue's psychic abilities. It seems that it can be used on more than one person, so that already makes it...
Well, there we're witnessing it right there, more than one. Yeah.
Better than General Blue's technique, in my opinion. I'm going to place this right into D tier. Not sure really what to call the next one, but I'm just going to call it Mouth Blast. You know, we've seen multiple characters in the series who are able to fire these beams out of their mouth. It's nothing new, but is it an effective technique? I'll tell you that there's at least a surprise factor to it, right? The last...
Yeah, imagine you grabbed... You're staring down, and all of a sudden they open their mouth, and you're like, oh, wait, I'm not going anywhere.
The place that you expect an attack to come from is the person's mouth, and I don't see it being as damaging or as devastating as some of the other techniques on this list, but useful nonetheless.
Yeah, if you find like a really tricky way of using it, like boom, bam.
I will drop the Mouth Blast in C tier. Big Bang Attack. Okay, let me put it to you like this. If you've ever wanted to fling a bomb at somebody, first off, you're weird. Get help. Second, this is that technique. It's been shown off to be launched as a ki blast sometimes. Other times it's like a blast wave. Either way that it's used, it's extremely powerful. So I'm dropping this right into B tier. Next up, we have Guldo's time.
Mate, this technique is so freaking OP. It's basically just like if Dio was in Dragon Ball.
Time stop. I don't know about you guys, but the ability to stop time is broken.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the more exhausting it can be, but the fact that you can stop time, that has huge advantages.
Crazy.
I'm dropping this at A. Light Grenade. So Piccolo used this against Cell, and he blasted away almost an entire island. This covers an extremely large
Piccolo's got such an amazing collection of techniques.
area, and it's overall just super destructive. I'm going to be dropping this in B tier. Body Change. So Ginyu's Body Switch is a weird technique. Honestly, I think it can win you the battle, especially if your opponent is bigger and stronger than you, but at the same time, it can go wrong very quickly. Like we saw on the show, what if a bird or a fly or something gets in the way of your body change technique? You are basically at the mercy of whatever is in front of you. So for that, I drop this in D tier. Eraser Gun is up next, and in my opinion, I think Eraser Gun is just a Mouth Blast, so I can't really see a reason to separate it from the other Mouth Blast. I'm just gonna throw it into the same tier, into C tier. I don't know which one is stronger, so just to be fair, C tier.
What's this one?
Crusher Ball. This is a small orb projectile that's thrown in the style of a volleyball. That's all it really is. It's not that special. It seems that it's very easy to avoid.
Yeah, it doesn't do
This belongs in E
much.
tier. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Next up, we have the Spirit Bomb.
Yo.
This might be a hot take, might not be. This technique is based off of two things. One, the amount of energy you have, and two, the amount of time you have to actually perform the technique. If you are in the middle of the desert, for example, in the middle of nowhere, not really too many plants or trees.
Oh yeah,
or
you ain't getting. It's
life
very
in general,
situational. I get what you're
kinda
saying.
makes the move
Very
useless.
situational.
But let's say at the very least you only have, a few living things around you. The Spirit Bomb will be much weaker overall if you don't take the time to gather that energy in the first place. The technique leaves you wide open for an attack. Even Goku kind of struggled to make it strong enough to defeat villains like Frieza and Buu. So while it might be super effective, I'd argue that it's unreliable. And for that, I'm going to put it in D tier.
How many people did Goku actually beat with the Spirit Bomb? Because didn't use it again. Well, Vegeta survived. They did use it today. So against with Krillin and Gohan and Bowser. So didn't defeat Vegeta with it. Frieza survived, so he didn't kill Frieza with it. He didn't kill Cell with it. It's just Kid Buu, isn't it? Yeah.
Vegeta's Dirty Fireworks. Now, I've always found this move interesting. You point at something and it explodes. Not really sure how it works. Is the opponent detonating from within?
Yeah, I think
the closest
that's how
thing
it
that
is.
I could really think of that was similar to this was Frieza's technique that he used to kill Krillin.
yeah.
And it just kind of looked like he sends in like some kind of
Inside.
invisible key ball that somehow
And then just
detonates
activates
the
it, yeah.
person from within. So if your opponent can't even see something like this coming, I would say that this is a
very
really
high.
good technique. And I'd even drop
Hey.
this in A tier.
Yeah.
Energy Blast Barrage. This is just a barrage of Ki Blast. And I mean, these can be used in so many ways, right? Let me not play it down because whether you're firing it off in like wave form, ball form, it doesn't matter. This technique can get destructive really, really quickly. You can overwhelm one enemy, take out multiple enemies. You can even extinguish all life on a planet with this one.
Yo,
Honestly,
yeah,
I'm
when
dropping this
Buu
one in
was
A
that,
tier.
that's crazy.
Next up, we have the Ki Blast Cannon. So this move doesn't really use Ki in the traditional way that we see it used in the series. It's more of like a force wave that kind of just launches the opponent back with immense force. But the only reason I think you'd use this is, what, to create space? I think honestly that this is useless. Unless like it's a world tournament, it
Okay.
doesn't seem to get the job done of killing or defeating or harming your opponent in any way. So for that, I'm dropping this in useless.
What's this now?
Up next, we have Mafuba, the
Mafuba.
evil containment wave. Now, assuming that you have a container with a seal, and assuming that you can actually aim and you manage to seal the person in said container, then you have a pretty solid technique. However, if the other person also knows the Mafuba technique, they can actually reverse it. So it's kind of
Which is
risky.
crazy.
Also, the technique can kill you if it drains too much of your stamina. So there is that too. I'm dropping this in D tier. Godbind. This is a fairly new technique,
Yeah.
I'd say, right?
Probably
It
was
locks
the
your
first time,
opponent
right?
in a paralyzed state.
Interesting
I guess
technique.
It uses Ki or like God Ki, Aura, whatever it is that you want to call it. What's crazy is that if the person is stronger than you, they can actually reverse it. And then you're in the bind. It's still a useful technique nonetheless, but for that, I'm going to drop it in C tier. Rock, scissors, paper, or rock, paper, scissors, whatever it is, this is just like the Wolf Fang Fist situation. It's just a technique that's a rushdown attack. It's not really key-based, so I'd place this over in F tier. Next up, we have Ultra Instinct. Now, I don't see Mastered Ultra Instinct on this list, so I'm just going to assume that this is Ultra
Oh.
Instinct as a whole.
Okay,
This
yeah,
is
every
broken.
version, right.
Yeah, I don't think I really need to explain
Eh?
why. This is basically peak. Next, we
Oh.
have Super Dragon Fist. Man, Wrath of the Dragon is a great movie. It's one of the final Dragon Ball Z movies
It's one of the best movies, but the way that Goku comes in with this kind of ruined it for me. But
that we had for that time. Go check it out if you haven't already. But anyway, blowing up into a giant kaiju-sized golden dragon is just, it's raw as hell. We're going to drop this in A tier. All right, so next up, we have Death Ball. And this, I'm kind of torn. It's either going to go in Z tier or it's going to go in the useless category, right? It can go in Z tier because, I mean, it's blowing up a planet and it's definitely going to just kill your opponent if they can't survive in space. But you'll also die if you can't survive in space. Therefore, it would be a useless technique to use. You'll just be killing yourself, you know? So assuming that you can survive in space, I would drop Death Ball in Z tier. Next up is Death Beam. Now, this is a super fatal move, and while it might be a really good move, it's easily countered, and I think it's easily
we're witnessing it right now, just slapping them
so
away.
I drop Death Beam in C tier. Right, so for this next one, I'm not really sure what technique this is. I just count it, I guess, as having a monkey tail. So here's the thing about it, right? You can use your monkey tail for multiple purposes. You can use it for fishing, for flying, apparently, right? But then you risk the whole transforming part of it. Every full moon, you go into full monkey, right? You have absolutely no control. You lose all your human senses, and I'd argue it's a huge weakness, too. I mean, it's a weak spot. If it's grabbed, and if it's cut off, I mean, goodbye to your monkey form. So I'd drop this in D tier. Masenko. So I always thought the Masenko was just the explosive demon wave technique, but apparently it's a completely separate technique. So I dropped Masenko in C tier. It seems like it's one of those moves that you can use because it's easy, it's simple, it's reliable. C tier. Next up, we have Hell's Flash. So this is a grapple that goes into, I guess, like a double beam, and that just straight up obliterates your opponent. It hits them like point blank, and it fires more beams out of like craters in the ground, and then they explode. It's just, it seems very up close and personal. I'd throw it in B tier. After Image. So this technique you can't really use to defeat your opponent. I mean, maybe to confuse them and like counterattack, but it's not a guarantee, you know, kind of like with the whole solar flare situation. So I'm gonna just drop this in C tier. Time skip. So Hit's time skip technique is broken, right? It's the ability to leap through time. It acts more like time travel than it does stopping time, which is like a misconception that a lot of fans have.
I was gonna say
it does manage.
It doesn't work quite like King Crimson, but it's in JoJo's, but it's similar.
I believe to freeze people in time later in the show, but the time skip technique itself allows you to skip ahead into the future. I'm dropping this right into Z tier. Next up, we have Spirit Sword, or Energy Sword, whatever you want to consider it to be. So the Spirit Sword can be extended to ridiculous lengths, and it's literally just making a sword out of your hand. I'd personally put this in B tier. And finally, our last technique, the Sword of Hope. This is basically a combination of Trunks' Light Sword and the Spirit Bomb. It's literally a Spirit Bomb sword. So considering that you need energy from the Spirit Bomb to use this in the first place, I'm not sure how effective it would be to set up.
When you think about how there was pretty much no one alive on the planet at this point, and he still managed to pull it off, I think it's pretty effective.
During a battle. By the time you manage to gather energy for the Spirit Bomb and then channel it into the sword, it doesn't seem practical. So for that, I'm dropping it in D tier. Now, I should mention that if we were to rank the Spirit Bomb and the Sword of Hope as an attack alone, minus all the prerequisites that go into it, I would put them both in Z tier. Because they are known to have destroyed some of the biggest threats of the universe, so there is no doubt there. But for the sake of using it in an actual battle, it might not be practical. And that's it. That's our technique tier list. If you guys disagree or have your own opinions, let's talk about it in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and subscribe. I'm Devil Artemis, and I'll see you in the next one. I should be like you now.
Very cool. Very interesting. That was fun. A little bit different from Devil Artemis. 2 months ago, hasn't done anything similar to it since, but it's still cool that he's tried something else. But let's get to 1 million! I can't wait. It's gonna happen. The dude's an absolute genius. And yeah, so thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, I want to be able to watch Patreon-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series. Links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask to help support channels. Greatly appreciate. Thanks for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? If you guys think of this, click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time. Bye.